A very warm welcome to Addis News Hour. I'm Solomon Danye. Thanks for joining me. Some may continue trying to strip us of truth, context and recent realities, yet none can snatch away our collective dignity and unity. As proud Ethiopians, as proud Africans, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has made this remark: stand tall, stand firm and stand together for Ethiopia, he has urged fellow citizens. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed asserts that the people and government of Ethiopia will never fall apart by propaganda warfare. The Premier made the remark during a monthly Addis Work program hosted by his office. Ethiopia will defy all odds and come out of the current situation stronger, the Premier underscored. We're more on this story. The people and government of Ethiopia are being vilified by some Western governments and the so-called international media outlets for refusing to let the TPLF tear the country apart. The integrated media campaign to tarnish the image of Ethiopia has intensified as Ethiopians in all corners of the country stand in unison to send the TPLF to its demise. A propaganda warfare launched by the TPLF and its sympathizers in the West against Ethiopia has caused enough destruction but will never break the country apart, says Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed on Thursday. Attending the monthly Addis Work program hosted by his office, the Premier asserted that there is no Ethiopian leader right now who flees home by a mere propaganda campaign.
ቢያንስ አዲስ ታሪክ ባንሰራ ከ83ቱ ታሪክ ልንማር እንደምንችል አልተገነዘቡ።
These entities failed to understand that we at least take lessons from what they did 30 years ago when they overthrew the Derg. The propaganda tactics they used to tear the Derg apart won't work right now. We have been nagged by non-stop queries to leave the country as if everything was over. Ethiopia is for Ethiopians. We do not have another country. We don't change as the situation changes, and we will never leave our country. Those who have been busy leaving the country will bother us to come back in a few weeks' time. If you see the way the international media have been reporting about Ethiopia in the past couple of days and the manner the UN Security Council has been treating the Ethiopian case, it was indeed frustrating for every politician. But the spirit of Ethiopianism floats above these all. Ethiopia was challenged by similar incidents multiple times in its history. We will definitely overcome this.
በዓለም ላይ የተዘገበችበት ልክ በጥቂት ወራት ውስጥ በሴኩሪቲ ካውንስል አጀንዳው የቀረበበት ልክ ብታዩ
One of the panelists of the program, Bikila Hurisa, for his part underscored that Ethiopians from all walks of life are toiled to debunk such destructive rhetoric against their beloved country.
We are trying our best to really express the truth of Ethiopia to the international community, so that the Ethiopian truth can be properly understood, and Ethiopia's cause when it comes to this war is a real present cause and legitimate cause that is endangering the territorial integrity, security of the Ethiopian people. So this truth should be clearly understood by the international community, and we are trying our best, and the international community should try to understand the real cause of Ethiopia, which is really related to the security, territorial integrity, and also peace and stability of the country itself. And no international community should be by the side of the terrorist group, which is a real threat to not only to Ethiopia, but also to the East African countries as well.
Leaders of opposition political parties and other participants of the panel also called on all Ethiopians to stay resilient so that they will come out of the situation stronger. It's now time for trending. I'm joined here by my colleague Goshu Melissa, who is going to tell us about the trending issues in the past 24 hours. Thank you for having you, Goshu.
Thank you for having me, Solomon.
So what are the top issues or the trending issues that have been making headlines in the past 24 hours?
Okay, Addis Ababa dialogue was yesterday organized by the Office of Prime Minister yesterday, and the Office of Ministry of Foreign Affairs gave press release on the visa restriction. The embassies of Addis-based embassies advised the visa restriction, and some 72 UN officials detention, and there is an allegation by Western media outlets about targeting Tigrayans in Addis Ababa. We will touch these pointers.
Okay, so go ahead.
On the occasion yesterday, the Office of Prime Minister, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed said, we have now embarked on a task of nation building to lay solid foundation for peace building and develop Ethiopia. As you know, the country is under critical condition. Wrong narratives by the TPLF carried out over the past 3 decades just disturb the coexistence of the brotherhood among Ethiopians. And the Premier also said Ethiopians to fight against fake news and disinformation, which is now serving as a weapon of war from the enemy side. The other thing, he said, Ethiopia has never been defeated by enemy in its long history. He said that you have been part of this discussion.
Yes,
Solomon.
of course, yeah.
The other thing is Ministry of Foreign Affairs statement. Some embassies travel advice in detention of some 72 UN local officials. As you know, the country has declared state of emergency. This state of emergency is put in place nationwide. According to that statement, some embassies based in Addis Ababa who warned their citizens to evacuate. Ambassador Dina stated that such statements could be seen as in two ways. Some Western media might have disseminated such information in order to portray Ethiopia as being chaos. And the report that TPLF is marching on the capital city, which is totally wrong. Given TPLF doesn't have the capacity to pose a threat of this magnitude. The country's state of emergency should be, the country has already declared state of emergency, put into effective nationwide to contain the existential threat posed by the TPLF, and they should be abide by the country's rules and regulation of the state of emergency. Ambassador Dina also indicated that some 72 UN local officials detention, the staff were arrested due to their infringement of the proclamation of the state of emergency that was enacted recently, and they have to abide by the rules and regulations of the country. He said the other thing is Jeffrey Feltman is shuttling here and there, once in Kenya, once in Mekelle, in Addis. He tried to meet public figures of Ethiopia, like singers and other public figures. He tried to deceive them. The visa will be facilitated for them and to leave the country. Just instigate more violences being outside in the US. The other thing is the third one.
The final one, okay.
The final one, the Addis Ababa administration issued a press release. There is an allegation by the Western medias Tigrayans are targeting in Addis Ababa. As you know, there are supporters of TPLF in Addis Ababa and nostalgics of the regime in Ethiopia. So the allegation is far from the fact, said the Addis Ababa communication head, Jonas Zode. No one is targeted based on his or her ethnic identity. So the report by the established media outlets is far from the fact, he said in his statement. This is what I have for today. Thank you, Solomon.
Thank you, Gosh Melissa, for your information. Have a good day.
Thank you so much.
fossil of our human ancestor, one of the old. Hiking in the Simeon Mountains is a highlight of traveling in Ethiopia.
Kingdoms and empires.
The Grand Renaissance Dam, which is built on the Blue Nile, is set to power landlocked country.
Welcome back. You're watching Addis News Hour. The Biden administration has waged a proxy war against the democratically elected government of Ethiopia in an apparent move to press American interest. This remark was made by the Ethiopian American Ali Kanali, also member of the Democratic Party and human rights activist. He has called on the Biden administration to refrain from meddling in the internal affairs of Ethiopia and also lift its sanctions. Gushmalisa reports.
Since Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed took power, the United States and its allies have put undue pressure on Ethiopia. The country is therefore battling not only the terrorist TPLF group, but also diplomatically coordinated wars posed on it. The Ethiopian-American Ali Shem Ali, also member of the Democratic Party in the USA and human rights activist, has spent some time with ETB discussing current issues unfolding in Ethiopia. He says the Biden administration has waged proxy war against democratically elected government of Ethiopia.
United States in last years took a different approach. We are waging a war against democratically elected government by the people of Ethiopia, for the people of Ethiopia. Therefore, United States waging a war is a proxy war. But United States have a better tool, are better equipped than any country in the world to protect their interests anywhere.
Ali hammered that the TPLF has committed mass atrocities over the past 3 decades, with efforts by the US to back it to power, which is totally unacceptable.
If TPLF was so great, they had 27 years of leadership, of governance. What they have done, torture, mass killing, and so on. So we cannot sell to any Ethiopian or any African today. Bringing back the TPLF to power is a mistake. And I believe the Ethiopian had decided to fight back, and we as well, a diaspora, to do our best to advocate our senator, our congressman.
He also calls upon the Biden administration to refrain from meddling in the internal affairs of Ethiopia.
And I'm calling on my administration, I'm my party, Democratic Party, and Mr. President, you have a chance, you have opportunity to show the world that the United States is still and have a power and have a solution to lead the world and find a peaceful solution in Ethiopia and beyond, and to respect and open dialogue directly with Ethiopian elected government led by Abiy Ahmed. And we can show the world we can fix it. It's in your hands, and I know you can do it, and you can do much better. And I'm calling all diaspora to advocate and write to your senator, congressman, to intervene in the Congress, to lift all sanction put in Ethiopia.
He also urges all Ethiopian diasporas to be ambassadors of their home country to protect interests of their nation.
The U.S. should repair its credibility by acknowledging and apologizing to the Ethiopian people for its former complicity with the TPLF, an American expert urged. In an open letter to U.S. Special Envoy Jeffrey Feltman, the American economist and democracy promotion expert David Steinman has called for thought to a new policy that takes these facts into account and better aligns Western and Ethiopian interests. The Economist added that the US should repair its credibility by acknowledging and apologizing to the Ethiopian people for its former complicity with the TPLF. At least rationalizing conflicting American and Ethiopian aims in this manner will reduce the harm to Ethiopia's people as much as realistically possible, the American Economist stated. The democratically elected government of Ethiopia has the duty to protect its citizens, and international organizations should be aware of these. This calls for abiding by Ethiopia's state of emergency and the nation's other laws. Foreign Ministry spokesperson has briefed the media on major events that unfolded over the week. Kasan Jane reports.
Foreign Ministry spokesperson Dina Mufti has briefed Thursday local and international media outlets on the ministry's activities this week. Accordingly, Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ethiopia, Demeke Mekonnen, met with United Nations High Commissioner for Humanitarian Affairs and United States Special Envoy to East Africa, Jeffrey Feltman. According to the spokesperson, Demeke explained to Ambassador Feltman that it was not appropriate for the United States to impose special pressure on Ethiopia.
The DPM appreciated the recent comments of the Special Envoy at the African Institute, Peace Institute in the US, where he alluded to condemn the atrocious acts created or undertaken by the TPLF. The DPM reminded the Special Envoy the appreciation of Ethiopia for the concerns by the US about the situation in the country, though he expressed his misgivings about suspension of the AGOA, which hurts Ethiopian ordinary people. And he said the suspension of the AGOA doesn't measure up to the level of the relationship between Ethiopia and the United States. He met also the UN Under Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs and Emergency Relief. He briefed him on the relief activities that are being undertaken by the government. He expressed the obstacles being created by the junta and the hindrance created by this force for the relief supplies.
The Minister of Justice, Gideon Timotheos, and the State Minister for Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Redwan Hussein, briefed the delegation on the current state of diplomacy and the situation in the country. They explained that a democratically elected government has a duty to protect its citizens and that international organizations should be aware of this. The spokesperson said, noting the government of Ethiopia urged international organizations to abide by Ethiopian law repeatedly.
Declaration of national emergency in Ethiopia, and the diplomatic community has been briefed about the content and the objective of this declaration of state of emergencies. And it was emphasized that any sovereign and independent state does this to defend its sovereignty and territorial integrity. This briefing has been made by the Minister for Justice and State Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. There was a statement given this week by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs on the suspension of the AGOA and the disappointment on the part of the Ethiopians about these suspensions because it hurts the people, the public, the ordinary people.
Ambassador Dina stated that some foreign media outlets are spreading fabricated information to achieve their goals, stressing that the media should reconcile its purpose with the truth.
So the propaganda being undertaken by various forces about the threats, the impending threat is not true. There are a lot of fake propagandas. There are a lot of misinformations and disinformations by some major media outlets about the encirclement of the city of Addis by the TPLF junta, which is not true. There is disinformation also about Ethiopia-Kenya border being closed, which is not true. There is disinformation about genocide and ethnic profiling in the capital, which is not true. And all this used to be futile exercise to threaten, to frighten, and demoralize Ethiopians who rose up against the junta forces in defense of the territorial integrity and the independence of the country.
It was also noted that Olusegun Obasanjo, the East African envoy to the African Union, is pursuing the truth in various ways. In this regard, he said they are trying to understand the situation from Mekelle to the African Union and the United States.
Oh wow. Yeah, this is beautiful.
Welcome to the city of Bajaj, the double J city, Jijiga.
This is Addis News Hour. Ethiopia has the wisdom to resolve its internal matters without resorting to the interference of other nations. South Sudanese ambassador to Ethiopia, James Morgan, made this remark in his recent interview with the Ethiopian news agency. The ambassador says, as one of the oldest nations, Ethiopia is wise enough to decide for its internal matter. Meddling by foreign elements in its sovereign affairs is therefore not necessary.
Ethiopia is an oldest country in the world. Ethiopia was a member in founding of the League of Nations. Ethiopia was a member or a leading member in founding of the OAU. So Ethiopia has got experience. Ethiopia has the wisdom to solve its internal matters by itself. We do not want any foreign interference in Ethiopia's internal affairs. Look at such an experience from the League of Nations, from the OAU. Ethiopia participated almost all over the world in peacekeeping. So it has got experience enough to resolve its own problems. So no interference. We do not support any foreign interference in the internal matters of Ethiopia.
He has also taken the occasion to highlight the strong bonds existing between Ethiopia and South Sudan.
Ethiopia has always stood with the people of South Sudan since 1972 up to today. For that matter, whenever there is a problem in Ethiopia, we feel concerned because it is also one of our second homes. We feel here as we are in our own home. So when our home is having problems, we are not happy about it. And that is why my president, General Salva Kiir Mayardit, President of the Republic of South Sudan, came here twice. In August, he came here only for one day to deliver a message of peace. And then again, during the inauguration of His Excellency, Dr. Abiy Ahmed, for his successful winning of the elections, my president also came to congratulate the people of Ethiopia, as well as Prime Minister Dr. Abiy Ahmed for his victory. And now that Ethiopia has conducted the elections in a very peaceful manner, that alone was a message to the whole continent of Africa that elections should be peaceful.
Ethiopia Current Issues Fact Check disclosed yesterday that the photograph of a helicopter the terrorist group TPLF claimed to have shot down at Mile Front Afar region is an image from a 2016 news story. The terrorist group TPLF just issued a disinformation statement using an image from a 2016 news story on ISIS written on the Times, it said. Many mouthpieces of the terrorist TPLF media, including its leaders, said their anti-aircraft units in the Mile front have downed an Mi-35 helicopter gunship. Ethiopia Current Issues Fact Check also added that this fake image by TPLF comes following a statement yesterday highlighting milestones achieved in Mile and other fronts by the Ethiopian Government Communications Service.
Water reservoir is a biosphere's paradise. Hippos, crocodiles, monkeys, and a lot of more.
Expedition, acidic pools, and salt lakes. Here, Rock Pinnacle, Abuna Yamatagu, can only be reached via a steep and sometimes terrifying.
Finally, aircraft manufacturer Boeing has reached a settlement with families of the victims of the 737 MAX crash that killed 157 people in Ethiopia in March 2019. According to legal documents filed on Wednesday in a Chicago court, Boeing admitted liability for the accident. The documents do not mention specific amounts to be paid out to the families of the victims, but pave the way for the next stage of negotiation, as reported by Africa News. Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 heading to Nairobi crashed in a field southeast of the capital Addis Ababa 6 minutes after taking off due to faulty software. The accident led to the grounding of all 737 MAX aircraft and the worst crisis for the American aircraft manufacturer. The legal representatives of the families have described the agreement as historic and an important step for the families looking for justice. Before we go, a quick reminder of our top stories. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed says Ethiopia will never succumb to propaganda warfare. That's it for the news for me, Solomon Danya, and the rest of the English team here in the studio. Thanks for watching.